deep dive discussion, where we explore the ideas, strategies, stories, and inspiration that truly matter. Thanks to Estayo, our producer. Today, we're diving deep into Britt Andreatta's Wired to Grow. Harness the power of brain science to learn and master any skill. Our mission? Well, it's to pull out those core, actionable insights that can really help you learn more effectively, more efficiently, whatever it is you're trying to master. Let's get started.
Absolutely. And what's really fascinating right from the start is how Andreatta frames learning. It's a physical process, fundamentally physical.
Physical.
How so? Well, every time you learn something new, a new skill, a piece of info, you're actually rewiring your brain, literally forging new neural pathways.
So your brain is physically changing as you learn, like building roads.
Exactly like building roads or maybe strengthening them. These connections, they aren't just created and left right, they get stronger.
The more you use them.
Precisely. Repetition, that's the key. It reinforces those pathways.
Yeah.
Makes things more automatic, more efficient.
So that's the science behind practice makes perfect. It's actually biological.
It really is. And it's encouraging, I think. This ability to learn, to adapt, it's hardwired into us. We're built to seek out new stuff and, figure it out.
Yeah, that's a much more empowering way to think about it. It's not about being a good learner or bad learner. It's about understanding the machinery we already have.
Right.
The book talks about 4 phases the brain goes through. We don't need to go super deep into each one now, maybe.
No, probably not necessary to detail all 4, but knowing they exist helps understand why certain strategies work. It sets the stage for the really practical stuff, like the AGS model.
Okay, AGS, right? That sounds actionable. It's an acronym.
Yep. Stands for Attention, Generation, Emotion, and Spacing. If you want to learn better, this model is, well, it's gold.
All right, let's break it down. Attention first. Seems obvious you need to pay attention. What's the deeper insight here?
Well, yeah, it seems obvious, but Andreatta really stresses focus concentration. It's the gateway, for information to even get in properly. Minimizing distractions is huge because our cognitive bandwidth, it's limited.
Right, you can only juggle so much mentally.
Exactly. So a practical tip for you listening could be figure out when you're sharpest. Your peak focus time. Then guard that time. Create a space, physically or mentally, free from interruptions. Give your brain the best shot at absorbing things.
Yeah, that makes total sense. Fighting distractions is half the battle sometimes. Okay, next is G generation. What does that involve? Sounds active.
It is active, very much so. Generation means you're not just passively soaking information up, you're actively making sense of it yourself.
How? What does that look like?
It could be summarizing the key points in your own words, explaining it to someone else, even an imaginary person, or maybe connecting it to something you already know really well.
So you're building your own mental hooks for the information.
You got it, that act of processing. It encodes the information much more deeply, makes it easier to remember later. It's moving beyond just recognizing something to truly understanding it.
I can see that. Trying to explain something forces you to really get it. Okay, then E is for emotion. How do feelings fit into learning?
Oh, massively. Emotion acts like a highlighter pen for your memory. Your brain naturally flags information that has some kind of emotional charge.
Interesting. So strong feelings, good or bad, make things stick.
Generally, yes, though we want positive associations for learning, ideally. The key is finding relevance. Why does this matter to you? Connect it to your goals, your passions, a personal experience. Find that why. That emotional tag tells your brain, hey, this is important. Remember this.
Yeah, I definitely remember stories or examples that made me feel something much better than dry facts. Okay, last one. S for spacing. This is about timing.
Exactly. Spacing or distributed practice. It basically means spreading your learning out over time instead of cramming it all in at once.
The anti-cramming technique.
Right. Cramming might feel productive. You get a lot in short term, but for long-term retention, not so good. Spacing is far superior.
So how does that work practically? Give me an example.
Okay. Say you learn a new concept today. Don't just leave it. Review it briefly tomorrow, then maybe again in 3 days, then maybe a week later. These short, spaced-out reviews fight against that natural forgetting curve we all experience. Keeps the pathways strong.
Got it. Short bursts over time beat one massive session. It makes sense, even if it requires more planning. The book also gets into memory mechanics, right? You mentioned working memory limits earlier.
Yeah, that's a big one. Our working memory, the brain's sort of temporary notepad, can only hold about 5 to 7 pieces of information at once, maybe even less for complex stuff.
Only 5 to 7, that's not much.
It's really not, which is why trying to swallow huge amounts of information whole is so inefficient. The practical takeaway, chunking.
Chunky.
Breaking information down. Grouping it into smaller, meaningful units, like remembering a phone number, you group the digits, right? Same principle applies to any learning, makes it manageable for your working memory.
Okay, chunking. That's a super useful tip. And what about sleep? I hear that's crucial too.
Oh, absolutely critical. Sleep isn't passive downtime for the brain. It's when a lot of the magic happens for memory. During sleep, especially deep sleep, the brain consolidates memories, transferring them from that fragile working memory state to more stable long-term storage.
So pulling an all-nighter before a test is actually counterproductive for remembering.
Hugely counterproductive. You might feel like you crammed more in, but you skipped the vital process that actually locks it in. Prioritizing sleep after learning is just as important as the learning itself.
Wow. Okay, sleep is non-negotiable for learning.
Mm.
We also touched on the forgetting curve. It sounds kind of depressing, like we're doomed to forget most things.
Haha. Well, the initial curve is pretty steep. Ebbinghaus showed we forget a surprising amount quite quickly, but it's not doom and gloom. Because, as we said, spaced repetition directly combats that curve. And another key strategy is connection. Linking new information to knowledge you already have.
How does that help?
It creates more retrieval paths, more hooks. Imagine your knowledge is like a web. Connecting new info to existing points makes it part of the structure, easier to find later, instead of just floating in space.
So integrate, don't just accumulate. Makes sense.
Yeah.
Let's shift gears a bit. Mindset. That comes up a lot.
It does, and for good reason. Andreatta focuses on the difference between a fixed mindset and a growth mindset.
Fix is believing your abilities are set, right? Like you're either smart or you're not.
Exactly. And growth mindset is the belief that abilities can be developed through effort, through learning, through perseverance.
And that belief itself changes how you learn.
Fundamentally, if you have a growth mindset, you see challenges not as roadblocks, but as opportunities to learn. Mistakes aren't failures, they're feedback. It builds resilience.
That sounds much healthier. How do you cultivate that?
The book gives some great tips. Focus praise on effort, strategy, the process of learning, not just innate talent. Reframe setbacks. What did I learn from this? And a simple but powerful one, use the word yet.
Yet.
Yeah. Instead of I can't do this, try I can't do this yet, it implies possibility. It keeps the door open for growth.
I like that. Yet. Simple shift, big impact.
Yeah.
Okay, what about learning styles? We hear a lot about visual learners, auditory learners.
Right, that's a popular idea. But Andreatta pushes back a bit, or refines it. While we might have preferences, the research actually suggests that engaging multiple senses is best for almost everyone.
So not just sticking to what you think your style is.
Exactly. Multimodal learning. Try to get information visually, listen to it, maybe write or summarize it, even find ways to engage kinesthetically if possible, like building a model or acting something out. Using more senses creates richer, stronger memory traces.
So variety is better than specialization when it comes to how we take in information.
It's interesting. And the social side. We're social creatures. Does that impact learning? Absolutely. We have a social brain. We learn really well from and with others. Think about mirror neurons. They help us learn just by watching people. Plus, discussing ideas, teaching others, getting different perspectives. It's all incredibly powerful for learning. Collaboration boosts motivation too.
But there's a catch. Maybe.
There is. For social learning to work well, you need psychological safety. People have to feel safe enough to ask questions, admit they don't understand, make mistakes, without fear of being judged or ridiculed.
That supportive environment again. It keeps coming up.
It's foundational. We also touched on emotion earlier with the AGS model, but the book revisits it more broadly too.
Right, how our general emotional state affects things.
Yeah. Your mood impacts your focus, your memory. Too much stress is obviously bad, shuts down higher thinking. But interestingly, a little bit of challenge, that sort of, oh, I need to focus here feeling, that can be optimal.
The sweet spot. Not bored, not panicked.
Exactly. Moderate challenge creates a state of arousal that's actually good for learning. It links back to creating positive or at least engaged emotional connections to the learning process.
Finding that sweet spot seems key. What about really complex skills? Learning a language, mastering an instrument. Does the book offer a roadmap?
It does. It talks about the stages we go through, starting at unconscious incompetence. You don't even know what you don't know.
Uh-huh, been there.
We all have. Then you move to conscious incompetence. Okay, now you know you don't know it. Then conscious competence, you can do it, but it takes effort and focus. And the goal is unconscious competence.
Where it becomes automatic, second nature.
Right. And getting there requires deliberate practice, not just mindless repetition, but focused practice with specific goals, constantly pushing your edge and getting feedback.
And breaking it down.
Oh, yeah, absolutely. Break down that huge, complex skill into smaller, manageable chunks. Master the pieces, then integrate them. Makes the whole thing less overwhelming.
That definitely makes daunting tasks feel more doable. The environment also matters, you mentioned, both physical and psychological.
Both are important. Physically, yeah, minimize distractions, have what you need handy. But psychologically, again, it's that feeling of safety. Can you ask dumb questions? Can you try something and fail without it being a catastrophe? That encourages exploration and risk-taking, which are essential for real learning.
Okay, so learners need to feel supported. Now, technology, can't ignore that. Good or bad for learning.
Both. Definitely a double-edged sword, as the book puts it.
How so?
Well, the potential is amazing, right? Access to information, personalized learning tools, ways to connect with experts or other learners. Incredible.
Like the downside.
Distraction, constant notifications, the temptation to multitask, which we know is terrible for deep learning. Technology can easily fragment our attention if we're not careful.
So the advice is,
Be intentional. Use tech as a tool, consciously. Leverage the parts that help you learn, maybe specific apps, maybe online courses, but be ruthless about shutting down the distractions when you need to focus. Don't let it control you.
be the master, not the slave, of the tech.
Got it.
We're nearing the end. But the book wraps up with lifelong learning and metacognition. What's that?
Metacognition is basically thinking about your own thinking, understanding how you learn best.
Knowing yourself as a learner.
Exactly. In today's world, things change so fast, learning can't stop when you finish school. Continuous learning is essential, and metacognition is the skill that makes lifelong learning effective. It's about reflecting. What strategies worked for me on that last project? Where did I struggle? How can I approach this differently next time? It's self-awareness applied to your learning process.
So it's not just about learning stuff, but learning how you learn stuff.
Precisely. That self-awareness lets you adapt and become more effective over time, no matter what you need to learn.
Which ties back nicely to the core message, doesn't it?
It really does.
Yeah.
Andreatta's central point is powerful.
Right.
Our brains are literally wired to grow. We are built for learning. By understanding these brain-based principles, attention, generation, emotions, spacing, mindset, all of it, you can work with your brain's natural design. You can become a more confident, more effective learner and, well, pretty much anything you set your mind to. It's about aligning your approach with your biology.
A really empowering message. This has been super insightful, a fantastic deep dive into Wired to Grow. So many practical takeaways.
It's a really valuable book, I think. Anyone wanting to get better at learning or helping others learn would get a lot out of it. Very science-backed, but also very accessible.
Thanks for listening. Grab Estayo's latest book on Amazon. Need business consulting, artificial intelligence, book writing, and publishing? Yitch has your back. Contact Estayo or leave a comment. Until next time, keep diving deep.